What's up, guys? I wanted to pump out a real quick video because I was thinking about making a little bit longer one today, but I found a topic that I feel like I probably should discuss a little bit more and give my opinion on. You can agree or disagree with me, but the fact that a lot of liberals and conservatives have this problem too, not just saying all liberals do, but conservatives have this problem. I'll give a conservative example. When they say, like, I miss the good liberals, they'll mention people like Lyndon B. Johnson, JFK, people like that, even Jimmy Carter at times when they want to prove a point. But liberals have this problem when they'll say, oh, I miss, the decorum of respectability in presidents. They'll cite people like, for example, as mentioned before, I've seen in a post, people will say, like, Jimmy Carter, they'll say Clinton, they'll say Obama, they'll say Bush. Some liberals will even go as far as say they miss Reagan. And I think this can be really harmful to progressive movements, and not just progressive movements, but movements for workers and people that care about the working class American. I say this because as demonstrably bad as Trump was, I think that he's still in my top 5 in bad presidents. The only who I have at number 5, I'd have Andrew Jackson, then him, and then above him I would have Lyndon B. Johnson, Bush, and then obviously Reagan. Jackson forcibly removed millions of Native Americans from our homeland and killed tens, almost hundreds of thousands. He was known as the Native Killer, or the Indian Killer, I believe it was. And then obviously Trump, deregulated the economy heavily in a Reagan-style fashion, just because he had this, wild streak about him, and he would kind of blurt out anything he would say. Doesn't mean he's any different than any other standard Republican president we've had. He's just like Reagan in policy, honestly. He's more like Reagan in policy than he is Bush. But that's because Bush was focused more towards the war, where Trump didn't really have that war. He had more COVID, and he had the more deregulation with, because he had Mitch McConnell and on his back, people like that, and Mike Pence. I have above him, obviously, Lyndon B. Johnson, who had escalated the war in Vietnam and was responsible for millions of deaths of Cambodians, Laotians, and northern and southern Vietnamese. Most of these people, they were branded communist peasants, but really what they were workers. And a lot of those movements weren't really behind Ho Chi Minh of the Communist Party of Northern Vietnam. There was a substantial Workers' Party movement growing in southern Vietnam and Cambodia and Laos. That just happened to align with Ho Chi Minh because he was fighting back against the propped up puppet dictatorship of the United States. And Lyndon B. Johnson saw this as motivation to not just defeat Ho Chi Minh, who he's at war with, but to just bomb and kill all these other peasants and workers that wanted land reform, because it'll squash out any semblance of left-wing movements and progressive movements for working class people, in this case working class Vietnamese and Cambodians and Laotians. Above Lyndon B. Johnson, obviously, I have Bush, who is demonstrably worse than Trump, not in substantive domestic policy, but in foreign policy, obviously, because he fucking invaded Iraq. Liberals forget that. Just because he's this sweetheart guy doing oil paintings now doesn't mean we can't forget the fact that he killed over 1 million Iraqi citizens and almost close to 100,000 Americans dead. And we're still in this 2-decade-long war. So we're still in Iraq. We're still in Afghanistan for what? We got Saddam. We got Osama. What is our excuse to be there? Oil. I mean, trillions of dollars of mineral wealth. Even if we didn't have those two, then the geopolitical strategy locations of those places puts us dead center. Just kind of surround Iran, which is another topic I talked about before. And he's far worse than Trump. I'm sorry, liberals. I hate to break it to you. Bush is far worse than Trump. But above, Bush, I have Reagan for numerous reasons. You guys can probably guess. He allowed crack to be distributed throughout the big cities in the United States to inner black communities. And then it started to get towards the white communities, which a lot of people don't want to talk about. But that happened too. Because he wanted to stomp out a left-wing movement in Nicaragua and prop up a dictatorship like Noriega. He wanted to prop up Noriega, who was a right-wing dictator. He wanted to stomp out the left-wing movements. And he heavily deregulated the economy and basically started the downfall of labor unions with the stab firing of the 50,000 airport workers that were on strike. And then subsequently, a year later, or roughly within a year later, CAT, the construction company, laid off thousands of workers too when they went on strike. And then they did such with coal mining. And this happened to my stepdad. He was working in the coal mines under the Reagan administration. The union went on strike. He went on strike. He got fired. And then everyone ended up blaming the unions. When that's scab workers are illegal. You can't just fire someone because they're on strike. So I just want to get off of my chest because a lot of liberals seem to have the never Trumpers who try and put everything before Trump. You know, they'll take Hitler before Trump. They'll take another Reagan or Bush. They'll take a Mussolini if they fucking have to before Trump. Just because they give the veneer of, you know, sophistication. And that's kind of an elitist viewpoint of politics. So I just wanted to get that off my chest. It's a little shorter video than I would normally do.